Good morning. It's freezing outside. I think 135 million people are affected. Whew. I mean, it's snowing in Houston and in New Orleans. I was watching the Today Show, and I believe it's the first snow, at least of this significance. And I'm not sure if it was Houston or New Orleans, in 60 years. 60. And the accumulation could be the most since the 1800s. This world is going crazy, folks. So stay warm, because it's not going to really warm up here until Thursday. We'll get into the upper 40s. The Grizzlies made FedEx Forum cozy and warm yesterday. They were a winner on MLK Day. They actually got physical and matched that physicality of the Timberwolves, were behind almost the whole game and eked out a win on MLK Day. I am sure the symposium was spectacular. I really, in all my heart, wanted to go. I love that symposium. I think the MLK game is the best thing going that the Grizzlies do all year long. Most incredible atmosphere except for playoffs. I really do enjoy it. Unfortunately, we taped the Penny Hardaway show at the time that symposium and game were going on, so I was not able to do that, but I'm really sad. I know Darian Newsom was there. He's filling in for Brian.
Yes, sir.
And we will get into what that game was all about in just a second. It was actually a starters game. No reserve had more than double digits. That's a little different. We'll get into that. And the college football championship game turned out to be exciting. I didn't think it was going to be with the way it sort of was going toward the half, but I will give Notre Dame a lot of credit, because they did make this one interesting until there were 29 seconds left. We'll go over that in a second. We open today with sad news, heavy hearts. There is a guy that I don't know if many of you heard him, but he was in the Annapolis and Baltimore area, Washington, D.C., a huge sports figure, an announcer, the voice of Navy. So that's really how I knew him. But I believe he did Big Ten lacrosse, Greg Aston was telling me, and he did harness racing. He was a guy who did many sports and did all of them incredibly well. His name was Pete Medhurst. In the middle of this past season, they discovered a brain tumor, and apparently it was the brain cancer that took his life yesterday or last evening. The family has released that on social media. I'm not even sure how old Pete Medhurst was. I would say he's late 50s, early 60s, but a life well lived, but taken way too early. And then yesterday we learned of the passing of a guy that I knew pretty well, Phil Clark, who was baseball coach. He was an athletic director for a whole suburb. And he was just a really good guy, really good athlete, played baseball at Fraser High School, then became the coach at Skyview in Fraser, moved to Germantown, then went to Bartlett, won state championships at every stop along the way. He won 993 games. I think he should have gone back and at least won 7 more games and then retired. But he then became the athletic director for the whole Bartlett school system. He was great at that, a wonderful husband, a fun guy to play golf with, I can tell you that. Truly a gentleman. I know we honored him into the Hall of Fame. I think it was either a year ago or 2 years ago. I can't remember which. Just one of the more deserving fellows into the Clark family. Our hearts and sorrows and prayers go with all of you. A great, great guy. Phil Clark had passed away as well. So yesterday, MLK, the symposium, Cheryl Miller was there. Tommy Smith, who raised his arms, and I'm sure Pete, and I'll ask Pete Pranica what he said about that. That is a moment in time that we'll always remember. You had 2 African Americans that had won medals in a time where I don't think most of Americans realized the turmoil in a lot of the urban cities where there was a huge black population. And there was a professor at Stanford named Harry Edwards that was very much involved in the civil rights movement and had gotten the minds and the hearts of these athletes, Tommy Smith among them. And they did the black glove, fist raised on the medal stand. And I think that was one of the first times that some people in America, and I think I'm really one of them, realized, okay, these guys are not all that happy. This is not all apple pie and Americana for them. And it's true. You just look at the Muhammad Ali story, how he was celebrated, and then when he got back home, he couldn't eat in a certain restaurant or go to a certain hotel. And it was as if America did turn its back. And this was pointed out. It was pointed out beautifully. And it was great that's the perfect kind of guy for these symposiums on MLK Day. The game itself turned out to be perfect, and I'm going to tell you why I think that. Darian, I think it was perfect because if there's a question about this Grizzlies team, it is being physical. And this game was physical, and the Grizzlies were behind most of the game, and it took Triple J and Bane, and you had the big three there. Ja was okay with 17 points and 7 assists, but it was Triple J who had 15 of his 24 in the fourth quarter, a double-double with rebounds because he actually rebounded. And the Grizzlies walk away a winner, their third win in a row. So now they're 13 games over 500. That's more of a pace to get to the playoff as opposed to the play-in than it was 3 games ago when you were talking about, a 50-win pace.
Oh, absolutely. It was very, very gritty. And just to add some context to what you're saying, this time last year, January 20, the Grizzlies were 15-27 in 13th place. So this year, they're obviously making a lot of headway, but yesterday's game was very gritty. It was good to see Jaren actually put butt on someone and actually get some rebounds instead of having 2 or 3.
It was also the debut for this year of G.G. Jackson, the very promising rookie from a year ago, making his sophomore year. Got hurt in the summer. I think it was a fracture in his foot, took this long. Had a couple of stints with the hustle. I think, only played like 11 minutes in
yes,
this
he only
game.
played 11 minutes, 4 points.
And how do you think he looked physically? Did he seem rusty? Was he in shape? What's his body
he
like?
seemed rusty, but you can tell he's definitely in shape. He had back-to-back games with the hustle over the week. So he's in shape, but he just looks like he hadn't been around with the team. And for his post-game, you could even hear Josh answering some questions about it. They asked him, hey, how did you think Gigi looked? He told him, hey, quit running to the three-point line, to the corner, like as if he's a 3-and-D guy. He wanted to ingratiate himself a little more. But he looked fine. I mean, he had one highlight dunk. He had 4 points, but he had the good one highlight dunk. But he'll get back. But my bigger question is, once it's really time to unleash and him to get minutes, who is he taking those minutes from? Because it's certainly not Jalen Wells. Especially not how the defense he played yesterday on Anthony Edwards, but just where are those minutes coming from?
Well, it's interesting that you say that. I'm sold on Wells, and I'm
sold on him too.
I don't think he's going anywhere. He could end up Rookie of the Year as a second rounder. That would be absolutely wonderful. It would make the front office look. It already looks pretty darn good. It looks pretty darn good that you got a guy like G.G. Jackson that nobody really wanted to take a chance on, and they got him in the second round as well. So you've done amazing in that department of taking obscure guys, even though G.G. was a major star coming out of high school, but. Wells is not going to lose it. And you mentioned his defense, and that's the thing I've been most impressed about. But that's how good Anthony Edwards is. You say that was good defense? The guy scored 32 yesterday.
He scored 32 points, and he was quote-unquote held in check. And mainly because of the last play, even though they kind of took Wells off of him, if you watched the game or if you were there. They put Bane and Jaren kind of played some help defense that allowed that wild shot not to go in. But overall, great defense for the young man. He didn't get cooked for 50.
Edwards did have a chance to win the game with a 3, and the Grizzlies played good D. Well, here's the best part of their D. They took Rudy Gobert out of the game. Coming into the game, Rudy Gobert had hit 32 of his last 39 shots. That's the last 5 games he's played. He's not going to be a volume shooter. I mean, let's face it, 35 shots, 5 games, that's 7 shots a game. But when you hit 89% of them, it's pretty darn good, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Well,
Nas Reed made up for that.
And what he did yesterday was 1 of 5. So the Grizzlies did do a pretty good job on him. While we were asleep, before I get to the college football playoff game, and we got a busy show, Jeff Moore's going to be here to talk about the NFL, so we will get into the conference championships and what happened over the past weekend. And the good news today for Bear fans all across the world, they finally have a coach, I think. This is not a sure thing because he's only been a coordinator.
Big question. Do you approve?
This is the guy I wanted.
That's who you wanted.
I wanted
Okay.
him for 2 years. I'm all in on Ben Johnson. And we will get into that. If you look at what he's accomplished in Detroit, numbers-wise, pretty darn impressive. And we will get into that a little bit later with Jeff Moore. And then in our final segment, we will chat with legendary announcer from Knoxville. That would be Bob Kessling, who really had to take over a legend. Hard to do that and pull it off. To follow a guy like John Ward, who truly was one of the greats of all time, and actually he's the guy that put together the Tennessee Vol Network. He was that smart of a guy. And in comes Bob Kessling, who's really a TV guy, and he takes over and lasts as long as he wanted until now. It's a pretty darn good story. We'll reminisce with Bob Kessling at about 10:45. So while we were sleeping last night, we had a classic that no one seemed to watch, unless you were in Australia. And that is Novak Djokovic, the old-timer, who's looking for his 25th Grand Slam championship. That would make him the greatest of all time, men and women, up against what I think is going to be the next Hall of Fame guy in Alcaraz. Carlos Alcaraz won the first set. We had a 3.5-hour high-level competitive battle. Tennis at its best. 16 years the difference between Joker and the youngster Carlos. And I mean high-level tennis. But it was the old man. The old man won in 4. After losing the first set, he took the next 3. And Alcaraz is going to have to figure it out. He's not taking over the game like I really thought he would when he won his first couple of majors. He was 19 or 18 when he won those majors. He's still a very young guy. He's still going to have a shot at getting Djokovic, but Djokovic is on his way to number 25 now. He's still got Sinner, who's the number 1 seed, in his way. He's still in there, but now I believe this is the semis. He won in the quarters, so Joker's in the semis. He's only got to win 2 more, and it would be Grand Slam 25. Okay. Last night, I was glued in. I couldn't wait. This is the longest football season ever. I don't think it can get any longer unless they decide to stagger it a little bit. But it started, what was it, the 3rd week in August, right? Because that was like the ground
week
zero
week. Week zero.
Week
yes.
0. It started 3rd week of August, and here it is, the 3rd week of January. We almost got into February with this thing. And it was entertaining right off the bat. Notre Dame gets the ball first. We're talking about a 10-minute and 15-second 75-yard drive. And honestly, their quarterback, Riley Leonard, wasn't throwing the ball worth a darn, but he could run. And that's about as long an opening drive as you will ever see. And they led 7-0. Back comes Ohio State. Their drive is about 6 minutes into the beginning of the second quarter. So you had only 1 series and 3 quarters in the first quarter. That was incredible. But back comes Ohio State, and then Ohio State figured out how to stop Notre Dame. Just don't let Riley run. And they didn't. So once Leonard couldn't run, he wasn't that effective, Ohio State scored 31, and they were on their way to more. Here's what always happens in these kinds of games, any game really. There's a momentum changer. And as Ohio State was getting ready to make this 38-7, they fumbled the football at the 22-yard line of Notre Dame. And all things changed after that. And then, with 4 minutes and 15 seconds to go, after a lot of dramatics and two-point conversions and just great play by Notre Dame, it was an 8-point game. And then Ohio State did, and they've moved the ball the whole day. I mean, let's face it, if you look at the numbers here, they had 445 yards to the 308. They had the ball 5 minutes longer than Notre Dame. They only had to punt the ball one time, and they would have had more points had they not thrown a very bad pass on a third down that allowed Notre Dame to really make it more interesting, and they had not fumbled the ball at the 22 in the late third quarter. So this was interesting and not decided until after a big third down pass from the
Howard.
Ohio State quarterback Will Howard to their freshman sensation Smith, who talked a lot in the pregame about how he could beat man-to-man. Well, he did. And they had a 56-yard pass that set up what turned out to be the dagger with 29 seconds left, a short field goal that produced the 11-point win, which means not only did they win, but because of all that drama, there was not going to be a cover for Ohio State. And I'm sure a lot of people were thinking about that, but they did come through. They win the game, and it's just an amazing thing to think.
It was great, but that's why I actually do not knock Marcus Freeman for going for the doinked 3-point field goal, because if you go for it now, even though Ohio State kicked that field goal, you're still down 8. They had no chance because they were down 11.
You were down 16.
Yes.
When you decided to go for 3.
Yes.
It was fourth down and long.
You don't get fourth down, you're out of it anyway.
And let's face it, I hate to say this, but Riley Leonard was not pass. It was a passing situation. He did not pass the ball all that well. Now it's under a 2-score game. 2 scores wins the game. I did not fault him at all. Obviously, you're going to get second guessers on all of that, just like you are with the Ohio State coach, Day.
Oh, yeah.
Ryan Day, after they lost to Michigan, there were several people in their administration that wanted him fired. And basically one said if they don't beat Tennessee in the playoff, he's got to go. And then he beats Tennessee. He beats Oregon to right the one loss that they had kind of mismanaged time at the end. And then, honestly, they beat Texas, and they dominated Texas, I thought, which, by the way, Texas is preseason number 1 and Ohio State preseason number 2 by the gamblers.
Open the season up against each other next year.
Yeah, and that's pretty impressive stuff right there. So, college football playoffs, championship season, all now in the books. And Ohio State, which had lost twice. You got a champion with 2 losses. You had 2 teams in the championship game that a year ago wouldn't be in, because you only took 4. With 12, they got in, and look what happened. Drama. I love the system. We got to change the seeding. I don't mind if we go to 16. I think we should go to 16, but I'm certain they're going to change the way they seed this next year. But it was really a wonderful experience, and the last game turned out to be intriguing. We got to take a break. I'm sitting in the Family Leisure studio, and a reminder, the floor model sale continues through January, where all the 24s got to go at a really good price to bring in the 25s. So all floor models are up to 50% off. Hot tubs, you can get $3,000 off. Pool tables, arcades, ping pong, air hockey, foosball, all those things, 20 to 60% off. Get in while it's freezing outside. It's warm in there. It looks great. Get to Family Leisure. Take advantage of the floor model sale at I-40 and Whidden Road. We take a break. When we come back, Jeff Moore on the National Football League. He's right around the corner.
We are real sports talk. Sports 56 WHBQ. Available on your radio dial at 560 AM and 98.5 FM, as well as around the world online at sports56whbq.com. Take us with you everywhere by downloading the Sports 56 app. And at home, just say, Alexa, play Sports 56. Stay tuned in to Real Sports Talk. Sports 56 and 95 FM.
Prices are top. Only Gummy Bar in the Mid-South. 3 gummy sections. Prices with 3 bars starting for the upcoming beer season. Shop online at ClassicArmsandMemphis.com or visit Classic Arms at 1740 Countertop Parkway behind Parky's Barbecue in Cordova.
Hey everybody, best thing about a new year is getting something new to drive. So I'm out here at Olive Branch at All-Star Chevrolet where all the Silverados are. Get $1,500 in extra savings when you trade in a 2011 or newer passenger car or light duty truck. 1.9 financing on new Blazers or 2.9 with no payments for 90 days on a new Equinox. Yes, you can be payment free until April and your good credit deserves it. If you're law enforcement, first responder, healthcare, military, education, recent grad, you get another $500 off. So let's go, because no one has a certified and pre-owned selection like All-Star Chevy. Silverado, Sierra trucks, Nissans, Toyotas, Fords, Jeeps. I mean, you gotta test drive this red Corvette Stingray. And if you got any vehicle you want to sell, bring it here to All-Star Chevy in Olive Branch and get the most money for it today. Together, let's drive to All-Star Chevy's Fresh Start Sale, going on now in Olive Branch, or go to allstarautogroup.com.
Briggs Powder Coating for a beautiful finish every time. Briggs Powder Coating specializes in automotive, ornamental, residential, and industrial coating. With 2 conveyor lines and the largest batch ovens in the Mid-South, Briggs can accommodate all of your powder coating needs. Locally owned and operated since 2002, Briggs Powder Coating will customize a beautiful finish just for you. Drop by or call to see how Briggs Powder Coating can bring color to your life. 901-367-2771 or BriggsPowderCoating.com.
Each and every Sunday morning at 11 to join Ottawa Presbyterian Church for worship. Ottawa is a PCUSA church located in downtown Memphis. Now back to Wolo and Friends on Sports 56. Here's the voice of the Tigers, Dave Wolo.
We got our conference championships, some very familiar, some brand new. Jeff Moore here to talk about that, but I got to start with the news breaking late yesterday. The Chicago Bears, I think, have finally made a good pick. Let me tell you what Ben Johnson was able to accomplish this year with the Detroit Lions and with Jared Goff, okay? A guy that he had to really turn his career around in Detroit. Ben Johnson is their OC. The Lions were first in the NFL with points per game, 28.2, so over 4 touchdowns a game, every game. Touchdowns per drive, a third of every time they had the ball, they scored. They had 67%, 2 out of 3, every time they had a red zone opportunity. So not just field goals. We're talking 2 out of 3 times they were in the red zone, they scored a touchdown, and they ended up 395 yards per game. That's a pretty good offensive side, but he's never been a head coach. So that's where your question mark is. You knew Mike McCarthy and what he could do. You knew Pete Carroll, despite being 72 or 73, you knew what he could do, and he could develop quarterbacks. The whole thing here is Ben Johnson did kind of reclaim the career of Jared Goff. Somebody's got to get and develop Caleb Williams. We think that would be Ben. You couldn't have lost with Ben Johnson, with Pete Carroll, because you knew what he could do, except for age. This guy seems to be the guy that could be the Bears head coach for a long, long time. Jeff Moore, what do you think about that?
I like the choice. I like the choice that I'm going with an offensive-minded coach. I think it's going to be critical for them to beef up their running game, because he had a running game in Detroit, and get some kind of better play at tight end, because that's a quarterback's best friend.
And they got a good one in Komet. He's a good tight end.
Yeah, he has to play well. And then, of course, offensive line you got to protect. But I think it's a good choice.
They don't have a good one there.
And it's going to be critical that the staff that he gets good people on his staff, good offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and hopefully a quarterback coach. We'll see. But I think young quarterbacks like that need a coach other than your offensive coordinator that helps them in terms of the way they see the game and the way they develop as a young quarterback. And I hope that's what they get in Chicago. We'll see.
And, I agree. This is the guy I want. I think he's the one that can really, and not that I've ever talked to him, but just based on what I've seen and the way those offenses work and the development of guys, I think Ben Johnson is really good. And the Bears interviewed 17 guys. Wow. So they did their homework.
Yeah.
And let's hope that they did this correctly. Okay, let's go back to the beginning of these playoffs. A couple of them on really nasty fields, both Philadelphia and Buffalo. If we start at Buffalo, they're building a new stadium. It's multi-billion dollars, right?
Yeah.
And they're not building a dome. And people are going, what? Are you crazy? Look. That's an advantage for them. Even though the tight end dropped the football, and he had 2 drops and a fumble, he'd only had 2 drops all year going into that game. He's their all-time leading receiver in Baltimore, and Lamar Jackson was great. The field was terrible, and Buffalo is into the championship game with Kansas City again.
There's no question that field is an advantage, especially if Buffalo plays well and maneuvers well on it. It turned out it wasn't that big a factor in the game. I guess you could say, the ball was somewhat slippery, and that contributed to some of the fumbles. But, of course, when Lamar Jackson had his fumble, it didn't matter if the ball was wet or not. I mean, it was just he just dropped it. I mean, he slammed it to the ground. It's an advantage if you have to go through Buffalo and play on a bad field for the home team. But both teams have to play on it. So, I mean, they have to play well as the team that they're facing. But that was an impressive win by them at home. They needed it, obviously, to be able to get over that hump. And I guess the thing that's telling for me is absent a couple of mistakes, Baltimore was really in a position to win that game. So we'll just have to see how they do. I think the biggest thing for Buffalo this year that I don't see that they had last year and in times past is Josh Allen was really bad at turning the ball over. In this game, they had 1 penalty, 1 sack, no mistakes. And when you play mistake-free like that, that's going to help you when you're playing against a champion like the Kansas City Chiefs.
I do think, to defend Mark Andrews, the tight end that dropped the 2-point conversion, that would have tied the game. And I still think Josh Allen was going to bring them down and score a field goal. I really do. But I do think the condition of the field in that particular spot played a role. I'm making an excuse for Andrews because he's so sure-handed. But as he was starting to gather himself to catch the ball, it looked like he started to slip backwards.
Yeah.
And I think that affected it. But the snow affected my man Jake Elliott in Philadelphia. He missed 2 extra points.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for his team, the Eagles. That didn't come down on him and cost them the game. I think that field, the Saquon Barkley has an advantage. It's easier for a run game on a field like that, and the Rams aren't used to playing on this. SoFi Field is 72 degrees every time.
Yeah, the Rams impressed me in that they played better than I expected. You think about the weather, the way that they were really in that game the whole way. And, of course, Saquon Barkley was the X factor. And when he gets loose like that, I mean, it's just no stopping him. But I was really impressed with the way that they played. It just wasn't enough in that game, and you have to give Philly credit. It'll be interesting to see how Jalen Hurts, what his health situation is going into the championship game, because he's going to need to play well for them to have a chance against this Washington Commanders team.
Well, that's the shocker to me. What Washington did to a rested at-home Detroit team. I mean, they killed them. They dominated them. Yeah. I was amazed. Jaden Daniels, he's rookie of the year. There's nobody close. But he might be the MVP. Yeah, Saquon Barkley might have something to say about that, too. We haven't had a running back who's the MVP in a while. But, my gosh, that's incredible what they did to the number 1 seed in the NFC.
most impressive thing for me for the Commanders in that game was their defense and the way they were hitting the Lions. I mean, they were so physical, and I don't recall seeing them as a team be as physical as they were. Their defense is really good. You know that their offense with Jaden Daniels is going to be you can't play zone against him. He's going to find the open guy. He has incredible arm talent, really cool under pressure. It's just a game that we didn't see coming. I mean, I had crowned the Detroit Lions the NFC representatives.
Yes, you did.
And I didn't see the Commanders coming. So it's going to be fascinating to see how they play against their NFC East opponent that they know well. And I think I like their chances in that game. I really do, because Jaden Daniels is really an X factor, and I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to be 100%.
Yeah, when's the last time he was 100%?
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, one last thing. Kansas City, efficient again. Mahomes and Kelsey can't beat that combination. And this is the thing that most impresses me. Patrick Mahomes. He has played in his career, 7 games to get to the NFC Championship. In other words, the divisional title game. And he's won every one of them. He's never lost a divisional title game. This is going to be their 7th AFC Championship. That's amazing.
It is amazing. And, of course, with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, I mean, you just got the foundation for a very efficient offensive team. It's going to be a task for Buffalo to go in there and get a win. But I think this is the best supporting cast that Josh Allen has ever had. And I think he's playing the best he's ever played. He's just much more patient in the pocket and not making the mistakes he's made in the past. They beat Kansas City during the regular season. This is going to be the test. I think the challenge for them is going to be that in that first game, Travis Kelce was almost non-existent. I think he caught one pass for less than 10 yards. And we saw the real Travis Kelce stand up this past weekend. He's going to be a factor. And I don't know if they've got an answer for him. I don't know if anybody has an answer for Travis Kelce, but I think that's going to be the difference in this game. And I got to give it I like Kansas City because we see a resurgent Travis Kelce, and he cannot be covered with the way that the Buffalo Bills are going to try to play defense against him. It's going to be a challenge for sure.
Here's an interesting stats factoid. Every one of the winners last week, in other words, Washington, Philadelphia, Buffalo, Kansas City, they were all outgained by each of the losing teams.
And the other thing that's fascinating about that statistic is the teams that won had no turnovers, and I think you just get when you get in those games. I mean, you can't make mistakes. You just can't. And even though Baltimore was in a position to win, even with the mistakes they made, had they not made those mistakes, maybe they'd put themselves in a better position in the fourth quarter. But when you get to that level, it's the teams that are most efficient in taking care of the football and don't beat themselves.
All right, just to go over this again, Josh Allen against Patrick Mahomes, the number 1 seed against the 3 seed, I think it is. 2 seed in this thing. So you got 1, 2, and you're saying this is the 3rd straight Super Bowl.
I like Kansas
City is going to.
Yeah, I like them at home because that playoff experience is huge when you get in these big games. And they're just starting to play the way the Chiefs play. I mean, mistake-free, taking advantage of the tight end over the middle and getting first downs, keeping their defense on the sideline so they're rested. And not turning the ball over. That's a good recipe for winning.
The Chiefs are the 2-point favorite, and I suspect that the winner of that game will be the Super Bowl favorite too. And then the other side, it's Washington at Philadelphia. The Eagles are 6.5-point favorites. I've said all along I thought that the Washington Commanders were the luckiest team in the NFL this year, and I think they were. But there was no luck involved in the game with Detroit. They beat the heck out of them. Jaden Daniels was unreal. Now he's got to go to Philly. It's going to be cold as could be. And, this Philadelphia team can run the ball, keep him off the field. I kind of lean toward Philly. What's your take?
I'm on the fence with this one. I like Philly by a razor because they've got a little more playoff experience and the fact that they run the ball so well, and Saquon Barkley is such a difference maker. Their defense, their secondary is going to have to be ready. I mean, I think they can be carved up if they let the Commanders get a lead and start to put a little pressure on it. It could go the other way. But I like Philly at home. I think they could pull it off.
I can't wait for these games. I mean, they're going to be so good. That is for sure. And then we'll have a Super Bowl. One last thing. I really feel bad for Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
Here's a guy who's won 2 MVPs. He's a little like Dan Marino, has not had the big prize yet.
Yeah. I mean, and he played well enough to win, but he just got to play mistake-free. He knows that. And, of course, those drops that hurt.
That fumble is really.
I hope they haven't missed a window of opportunity. And, he's got Derrick Henry back there to help him, too. They just got to see if they can get it together another year. But I feel the same way. I was hoping he was able to pull it off and get to the big dance, but there's always next year.
All right. We will talk about Super Bowl next Tuesday. Thank you, my friend. Stay warm, will you?
All right.
All right. That is our man. That is Jeff Moore. He is brought to you by Ken Garland, custom home builders with a third generation. Williams in the business now, too. And here's the thing about the Garland family. It's been a constant for all the 70 years that they have been in business. It's all about the little details of taking whatever generation's best things are and putting them into your house and knowing the job's never done. They're always there to make sure everything is perfect for you. If you're looking for land, they've got it. If you're not sure how to utilize the land that you've picked out as your lot, they've got 3 generations of knowledge. Just give them a call. Go to the website. See what I'm talking about. KenGarland.com. Then you will love talking with them because they will give you all of the directions. And you feel secure knowing they'll be with you through the process and then even after. That's the way to go for sure. If you're building a new home or you're renovating an older one, it's always got to be Ken Garland, Custom Home Builders. We pause for a second. When we come back, we go to Knoxville. We'll take a walk down memory lane with the voice of the Volunteers. That's Bob Kessling, and he's next.
When you're working outdoors, unpredictability is the norm. So take on the toughest jobs with the 2025 Honda Pioneer 7. This rugged side-by-side horsepower engine operated with reliable torque for towing and smooth shifting through trails. And you can choose between 3 trims, standard, plus, and the Trim Timber First Edition. Ultimate Hamilton Adventures. See the 2025 Honda Pioneer 700 today at the Santa Honda, 5637 Road,
What happens when former real estate agents want to sell their homes? This is Sheldon Rosengarten with Mark Spencer Realtors. I am so proud and feel so honored when former real estate agents contact me when they want to sell their homes or someone has called them asking whom they should use. They know that I've been in the business for quite a while, have a great deal of experience, and know that I'm good at marketing and I'm part of a nationwide relocation network. Over the years, I've developed a highly successful strategic marketing program that can make the difference in what you make and when. Thinking of selling? Talk to 2 to 3 real estate brokers, but make sure I'm one of them. Remember what people often say, that when you want the job done, call Shell Done. So if you or someone you know is thinking of selling, remember what other former real estate agents do. They can call me at 483-0546 or email me at memphisrelocate.com. Shell Dunn Rosengarten at memphisrelocate.com or 483-0546.
Hungry for that delicious smash burger flavor? Dyer's Cafe is the original smash burger since 1912 and still smashing burgers in Collier's historic town square. Come out for the lunch specials Monday through Friday 11 to 2. Ask about the world famous split dog and authentic Chicago or New York dog. Try the leaner side of Dyers with the grilled chicken sandwich or freshly made salad. Also serving lakes, Delta raised catfish, Pasquale's tamales, and a customer favorite hand-breaded onion rings. Dyers, serving world-famous burgers, balls, and shakes. Carrier's restored Town Square.
New year, new savings during the Gossett Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Fiat Start Something New sales event on the bike. We got it covered in 2024 Jeep Grand Wagoneer L Series 3, $23,156 off MSRP and 0% for 36, or 3.9 for 72 months is available. 2023 Jeep Renegade Upland 4-wheel drive Sport, $309 a month. Buy it for $23,723. And power up in 2025 Ram 1500 Bighorn, $13,758 off MSRP or $629 a month. Plus all 2023 models, you can save up to $16,906 off. So drive past the rest, come to the best. Gossett Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Fiat. Online, GossettMotorCars.net. If you want it, we got it at Gossett Motorcars.
145, 331, MSRP 123, 155. Renegade Triple P 57, 256, MSRP 31095. Ram SN 544, 525. MSRP 56, 825. Includes all rebates and incentives and excludes PF 695. Excludes tax title and license with approved credit. See dealer for complete details. Dealer stock only.
I meant to mention this earlier. Indiana. You know, they made the college football playoff. Indiana, part of the Big Ten, where they bring in $100 million of television revenue. Indiana laid off 25 people from their athletic department in order to get ready for the revenue sharing that is coming. The Big Ten's Indiana is laying off people. Can you imagine how tough it is for an athletic department where you get about $10 million a year in TV revenue? The Tigers and the American, I mean, these are crazy times. A guy who's watched a lot of times come and go in the world of college athletics is Bob Kessling, the voice of the Vols for a long, long time, over 20, I don't know how many. Bob Kessling, how many years is it? 20 what?
26.
26
I'm right up there with you.
years.
Well, you got more years than I do, Dave, doing the Tigers.
Yes, and I'm not retiring, so why are you?
I just felt right. You know, I was talking with my wife. She wanted me to retire about 5 years ago, and but I've been taking it year by year since then, and I feel pretty good. But we got another grandkid coming in April, and that'll make 5. And I have 2 grandsons that were playing Pee Wee football this year, and I missed every one of their games. And I just don't want to miss any of this stuff, and I still want to be able to go out and do stuff while I'm still healthy, and so there's another chapter I don't know what it's going to be, and it hadn't been written yet, but I'll have another chapter. But I've been blessed, Dave, like you. I mean, we're both very fortunate to do what we do, and getting to do games is such a blast. But you know, some of the travel now starts wearing on you a little bit. It's harder to recover than it used to be, and it's just time. It just feels like this is a good time to and you know, I was talking to my wife the other day. You know, since 1974. I've been gone every weekend doing a game, you know, football and basketball.
Well, that's because you were a weekend TV anchor, right? I mean, that's part of that.
Yeah, true. I was covering that, but I was doing Jefferson Pilot, and I was doing, you know, Lady Vol basketball. I was still on the Vol Network doing football, and so it's just every weekend since '74 when you put your arms around that, that's a lot of time away from home. So. But you know, Dave, the one thing, the big blessing I've had through all of this is I've been able to do so many great things in my career, and I've been really fortunate to have some great opportunities. And I've never had to move my family one time. You know, a lot of guys in this business, they'll jump around from here to there, and they'll go to where the job is. And I've been able to do so many things here, you know, working for Jefferson Pilot, doing the SEC games, and doing some stuff for Fox, and doing different deals and SEC network stuff. But I've never had to move my family one time, so I never had to pull my kids out of school and never had to, you know, move from our house. We've been in it for, 35 years or something like that. And that's really been a big part of what I've really enjoyed about this, and that I haven't had to disrupt my family life. But, you know, you want to get out ahead of the posse, don't you, Dave? And that's kind of what I'm trying to do, too.
Well, in thinking about it, 2 thoughts, because you replaced John Ward. I'll get to that in a second. But John Ward, you're, I believe, my age. I'm 71. I think you're in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
And John Ward got out of the game earlier than you did. He did not go into his 70s.
No.
And this is one of the things that I've always admired about you, not just your talent, because you do such a great job with calling these games, but the fact that you had to follow John Ward and give him 6 and all the incredible ways that John Ward described games.
Yeah.
Truly a legend. And what a tough endeavor that was to follow him. And you did it. And you made that. And you made it work as Bob Kessling, not John Ward. That, to me, is worthy of a lot of praise.
Well, when Doug Dickey, the athletic director at Tennessee at the time, hired me, he told me, he said, now listen, I'm not hiring John Ward, I'm hiring Bob Kessling. So you do the games the way you think they should be done. And Dave, we talked yesterday a little bit. I had more people in the business tell me not to take this job than told me to take it, because they said no matter how good you are, there'll be people that still will say you're not John Ward, and they miss John, and you're this and you're that. But I think to take it was my alma mater. So when my school calls, you have to listen. B, when I was doing at that time, I was doing Jefferson Pilot games, which is for the youngsters out there, which is now what the SEC network is. I was traveling every single weekend during football and basketball seasons. I very rarely got a Tennessee game, so I was always on the road those weekends. And my wife kind of pulled me aside. She said, your kids are in middle school. They'll be in high school before you know it. Wouldn't you rather be tailgating with them at a Tennessee game instead of trying to get home from Starkville on Saturday night? And that resonated with me a little bit. But to take the job, Dave, you had to have the confidence, A, that you could do it, and B, and if it didn't work out, that you still had the ability to find another job. And that was the big thing. Did you have enough faith in your ability you could do it? And B, if it didn't work out, what's plan B? And so, but I had faith in both of those. And the one thing about it, I was a Tennessee grad, which helped. I'd been doing local TV for 18 years, so people around this area knew me. I'd been doing the Jefferson Pilot games, so people across the state were able to know me. I've been on the Vol Network for so many years, and I called Lady Vol basketball all those years. So, I think people here knew me and were comfortable with me, and that helped in the transition as well. But I'm not going to say it was easy, but I wouldn't trade it for anything.
You really covered a lot of different personalities in this tenure, going back to Pat Summitt in '74. So I'll start with basketball just because of that. Talk a little bit about all these coaches. You can start with Pat because you did hers, and I did a couple of her games on ESPN. How delightful she was to work with from my vantage point. And then you had Don DeVoe, you had Bruce Pearl, you had
Jerry Green.
You had the kid his son was a great Allen Houston.
Kevin O'Neill.
I forgot about Kevin O'Neill with the worst potty mouth in the history of mankind. And now you got Rick Barnes. I mean, you've really you've run the gamut.
You didn't get Buzz Peterson.
Oh yeah.
So
a lot of people.
Dave, it's been interesting, and of course, a lot of football coaches I've gone through. What's interesting to me? All the coaches are pretty much the same because of the fact that you have to have some ability to get one of these jobs.
Right.
I mean, it's not like you're totally incompetent. Suddenly, they just handed these jobs. You've got to have some ability. You have to have some kind of training. You've got to be able to organize and do these things. But I found in these jobs that they spin fast, and some of the coaches that get in these jobs, it spins too fast for them. I mean, now, if you're the football coach at Tennessee, you're managing, 200 people? So you've got to you got to be CEO and on top of being a football coach. In basketball, now it's up to about, 50 or 60 people, I guess. Well, you got to manage those folks, and you got to make sure that they're doing their job, and you got to be able to. And sometimes that just gets spinning too fast between being a coach and being a CEO and being a fundraiser and all these things. So that's been the really interesting thing to me, to see the ones that can really balance all of that. And those are the ones who are successful.
You got a favorite basketball guy? Can I ask you that? Yeah, you're
Well,
still working, but
well, as long as Coach Barnes might hear this interview, so I better say Coach Barnes. But but hey, Dave, you've been around a lot of coaches. Coach Barnes is one of the most intriguing guys I've ever been around. He is one of the biggest practical jokers that you'd ever want to come across when he's not on the floor. But as soon as he steps across that line, it is all business. And he's a coach that, and we talked about this on ball calls last night, he loves practice more than he loves the games. I mean, he loves teaching basketball. He loves
I think
working
that's
with young
most
people.
coaches. I know John Calipari was that way. I know Larry Brown was that way. I think Penny is sort of the same way. I think most basketball coaches love practice a lot more than the games.
Yeah, and Coach Barnes really does. I mean, he loves developing players. He loves taking guys like Dalton Connect and taking them to the next level. He's trying to do the same thing here with Chaz Lanier this year. You go back and look at the guys that Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield. He did the same thing with those guys, and so he just loves developing players. And so Coach Barnes has just been a delight to be around. You talk about being a practical joker. When we were doing an NCAA tournament game, maybe his first year or so, and so I have a little card in my wallet that closes out our pregame interview. The last word from Coach Barnes, brought to you by First Horizon. And I always keep the card in my wallet so I don't, screw up and have to, do it. And Coach Barnes then gets on me a little bit. So it's in my wallet. We're doing an NCAA tournament game his first year. I lay the wallet, or maybe the second year or third, something like that. Anyway, early in his career. So I lay the wallet down next to me. I take the card out. I say, Coach, good luck today in the game. He said, thanks. And he leaves. So I'm reading that card. Well, I look down to get my wallet. He stole my wallet. We're an hour before tip-off in an NCAA tournament game, and he's running down the hallway toward the locker room with my wallet. And I'm chasing him. I said, bring my wallet back here. So I go in the locker room. I can't find him. And he's in the bathroom there on top of a toilet seat. And I'm going, what? Who is this guy? I mean, we get ready to play an NCAA tournament game. But then instead, he gives my wallet back to me, and then he crosses the line, and it's all business. So and I think the players sense that from him. I mean, he gets on them in practice, hard. But as soon as the practice is over, he's their best friend. And so he's really been a treat to be around. But Buzz Peterson was great, and I really enjoyed Buzz. Had a great relationship with Bruce Pearl. It's unfortunate how things ended here for him, but Coach Pearl was.
He's doing okay now, that's for sure.
Yeah, not bad. But you just think if Adden had the bad ending here at Tennessee, could he be doing these same things at Tennessee?
He could be. He could be.
What his career would have been here at Tennessee if he was able to navigate those the things with the NCAA. So, but Bruce Pearl has been a great friend, and I hear from him occasionally, and we always have good talks when we get together. So I'll look forward to seeing him this weekend. Not during the game. I'll look forward to seeing when it's all over.
Well, that'll be a heck of a game. That is a great team. That Memphis played for the championship in Maui, and they were, I don't know if Janai Broom will be ready, but they are really something to watch. Football, we got to get to that. Were you there for Johnny Majors? I know he was in the department at some point, but was he the coach, or was it all Fulmer? And I guess the one guy you would have to ask about would be that. Pruitt, was he really on top of it, or Dooley?
I came in after the national championship in '98, so Coach Fulmer was the coach, and so John Ward went out. His last game calling football was the national championship in '98. So how do you plan that out, and how great that was for him to go out? But I was with Coach Fulmer, and but I worked. I covered Coach Majors when I was at the TV station.
Sure.
And so we had Coach Majors and I had a great friendship, and he was I don't know anybody enjoyed being a head football coach more than Johnny Majors. He really enjoyed it. It's just the perks he got, the recruiting, the guys around him, and he was a lot of fun. And because he was such a legend here at Tennessee. I do have one Jeremy Pruitt story that would kind of tell you a little bit about what we were dealing with.
You always have good stories, too, I got to tell you.
So the first year, we're doing the coaches show, and we're doing it after the game. we're cutting, doing it in segments, and so anyway, he had lost his first game, and he finally won a game. So a second game they'd won, and so we're getting ready to play Florida the next week. So we're taping the show, and we're in a break, getting ready to tape the next segment. And some guy in the back of the room says, Coach Pruitt said, Kentucky's beating Florida tonight. And Coach Pruitt goes, well, I expected that. I said, you did? He said, oh, yeah. I said, why is that? He said, well, Florida's no good. They're not very good. I said, well, doesn't that bode well for us next week going down there? I wouldn't think so. So that's kind of what he was brutally honest. I'll give Coach Pruitt one thing. He was brutally honest. And he would tell you exactly, maybe not what you wanted to hear, but he would tell you what you wanted to hear. We had Lane Kiffin was a trip too.
I forgot about that one. Yeah,
yeah. I really enjoyed Lane. You never knew exactly what you're going to get, and I'll never forget Tim Priest and I used to go out to practice on Thursdays, and then I'd go get with Coach Kiffin, and we'd have our little time together, and and then we would, I guess, tape the pregame show then on that Thursday afternoon. So anyway, Tim Priest and I are walking across the practice field, and all of a sudden here comes Lane sprinting. Hey, Tim Priest, and stop. But we think he's getting ready to rip us, and he goes, you haven't thanked me one time. Not one time have you thanked me. Tim's going, what, Coach, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? He said, I moved Eric Berry up closer to the line of scrimmage. If I would have kept him back and deep in the secondary, he would have shattered your interception record, and you've never thanked me one time. And then he turns and runs away. Tim has the school record still with 18, but I think Eric was like at 13 or 14 at that time.
What a great player.
And if he hadn't moved him up close to the line of scrimmage, he probably would have beat Tim's record. And then off he goes. So,
wow.
That's what I'm saying. Each one of these coaches is different. They're the same. They're all slightly paranoid. They're all, concerned
Yes.
that somebody's stealing their signs and somebody has figured out their scattering reports. But they all have that same unique quality that they've got that ability to get one of these jobs, which is a hard thing to do.
No doubt. We never even got to talk about this year's team, so I'm going to have to get you back soon to talk SEC basketball and the Vols, and we can reminisce. I never even got the players, so I got to get you on again sometime soon.
Okay. Well, let me tell you one thing about the SEC. Tennessee is ranked 6th in the nation, and right now 9th in the SEC. What does that tell you?
That tells you it's the best league maybe that I've ever seen, is what it
That's
tells
right.
me.
That's
Thank
right.
you, Bob. I always
Dave.
enjoy
Thanks for your
talking to you.
friendship, man. Always good to talk to you.
You got it. That's Bob
Thanks,
Kessling,
buddy. I'll see you.
voice of the Volunteers, and that'll do it for us. We're out of here. Johnny Radio is right around the corner, so please keep it on Sports 56. See you tomorrow.